Gutter! It's a gutter! It's just a gutter.
Hello, Sounds of the Mountain, Camp Bethel storytelling people, listeners dispersed about the country. I love my dentist. Now, I know you don't hear a lot of people say that, but I love my dentist. You see, several years ago, I was eating dessert. We were having fresh, just made out of the oven, from scratch, M&Ms. And I bit down on one with this tooth. You can't see it because my cheek is in the way, and also because it's not there anymore. But it felt like somebody took a nail gun and just shot a rusty 16-penny nail into my jaw. Now, this was about 7 o'clock at night, so all of the dentists were closed. And so my wife got on the internet and she looked up natural painkillers. And she found out that garlic is a natural painkiller. And so she went in the kitchen and she crushed up 2 cloves of garlic. And she put one on the outside gum of my tooth and one on the inside gum of my tooth. And it burned a little, but it took away the pain. And then she led me upstairs and she laid me down on the couch and she turned on the television, and I knew that I must be close to death because she then handed me the remote control. And about every hour, she'd come in and she'd stuff more garlic in my face. Now, nobody wanted to be around me, but I didn't want anyone around me anyway, so it worked out just fine. And in the morning, she got up and started to call around to dentists to see if anybody would see me. Now, here's the thing. I am what you call a self-employed artist. And believe it or not, that does not include a dental package. And so I probably hadn't been to the dentist in over a decade at this point because my wife and I have 2 children, and we had spent our money, our dental money, on the children instead of us going to the dentist. And as a result, I didn't have a dentist. So she'd call up dentist after dentist, and every time I'd hear the same conversation. They would tell her that they couldn't see me because I was not a pre-existing patient. Now, as I heard this conversation over and over again, I started to think to myself that this sort of language is exactly the beginnings of the problem of the American medical healthcare system. I mean, think about it. We're all pre-existing patients, right? I mean, all healthy people are probably going to be patients at some point. And you never hear a doctor refer to a current patient as a present existing patient, and you certainly don't hear him refer to patients who have passed on as post-existing patients. But finally, Dr. Lamb agreed to see me. And I got in the car, and I drove down the hill to Dr. Lamb's office, and the receptionist sat me down in the chair, and she said, Dr. Lambert, what did I say earlier? We're going with Dr. Lambert. She said, Dr. Lambert will be in to see you in just a moment. And so I sat there in the chair, and I waited the doctor's just a moment. And as I sat there waiting for Dr. Lambert to come in, we're sticking with Dr. Lambert. While I was sitting there waiting for Dr. Lambert to come in, I started thinking to myself, when he comes in here, he's going to give me one of those sanctimonious medical professional speeches where he tells me that if I had just practiced better oral hygiene over the years, or if I had spent just a few more minutes a day brushing my teeth, I wouldn't be in this condition. And I didn't want a sanctimonious medical professional speech. And when he finally did come in the room, I said to him first, I said, Doc, I got to thank you for seeing me. I said, I have to admit, it's been more than a decade since I've been to the dentist. And he said, don't worry about it. He said, when I was younger, I didn't take care of my teeth either. And I thought, that's not sanctimonious at all. That's about the most empathetic thing you could have possibly said. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. He said when he was younger, he didn't take very good care of his teeth. That makes it sound like maybe he's a second career dentist. And I thought, who goes into dentistry as their second career? I thought, who goes into dentistry as their first career? And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. Maybe he's like a born-again dentist, right? Like, have you ever met one of these preachers that used to be a biker? I'm talking like a hardcore biker, and then they found the Lord, and now they're a preacher. That is exactly the sort of preacher you want, because you can confess anything to that person. You can be like, yeah, maybe me and Stovepipe were riding our motorcycles down the road, and maybe it was 3 in the morning, and maybe we hadn't slept in 36 hours, and maybe we'd been drinking a little. But I'm telling you, there was a boat coming down the road toward us. So we got out our pistols and we shot at it. And that sort of preacher, he'll get a little glint in his eye. And he'll be like, yeah, that reminds me of the time. And then he'll remember he's a preacher now. and he can't tell you that story. But anyway, Dr. Lambert, after all of that, I just want to say that I now go to the dentist, let me start this joke over. After all of that, let me just say that I now brush gently, floss regularly, and go to the dentist like I go to church, which is to say, not as often as I should. In fact, it's been about a year now with the whole coronavirus thing. But anyway, I went back to the dentist after Dr. Lambert took care of that situation. I was there just for a routine cleaning, And Krista, she's the hygienist, I love her too, she did the cleaning, and then she said, now we have to go in this other room over here so that we can take an x-ray. And we went in, and she sat me down in the x-ray chair. It was just like the other dentist chair, except this one had a big x-ray machine pushed up against my face over here. And she took that little plastic filmy flangey thing, and she stuffed that way back in my mouth. And Krista said, now, bite down on this. Try not to move. Don't breathe, and don't get out of the chair. And then she pushed the camera even closer to my face. No, before she did that, she took a 40-pound lead apron, and she dropped that lead apron on my chest, and she Velcroed it around my neck. And then she left the room, and she shut the door. And I heard the camera go click, and I thought, now, Krista will come back in the room. But Krista did not come back in the room. And I started to second guess myself. I thought, maybe I didn't hear that camera go click. And then I thought, no, I heard that camera go click. And then I thought, maybe this is some sort of slow exposure x-ray machine. And then I thought, no, that's dumb. X-rays are bad for you. That's why I'm wearing a 40-pound lead apron. That's why Krista left the room. And then I thought, maybe something happened to Krista. Maybe she fell and she hit her head. Or maybe when she pushed the button to take the picture, she was electrocuted. She was laying out there in the hallway dead. Or maybe she'd fallen and hit her head. Or maybe she was being eaten by a giant Venus flytrap. Anyway, I started to panic, and I thought to myself, I don't care what Krista said. I'm going to breathe. And so I took a deep breath. And when I done that, I could hear voices on the other side of the wall. And I could clearly hear Krista's voice, and I could clearly hear Dr. Lambert's voice, and I could hear a man that was clearly in anguish. And I thought to myself, oh boy, a year ago, I was in that guy's same position. I should be thankful that I am no longer in that guy's position. And then I thought I should be thankful on that man's behalf that he has such caring and empathetic medical professionals to take care of him in his time of need. And so, with that in mind, I thought, I'm just going to sit here and be patient. And that lasted about 8 seconds. And then I started to get bored. So I started to look around the room. And right over here, of course, was that camera pushed up against my face. And then on this side of the chair, connected to the chair, we have, there was that tray with the little blue napkin on it with all the pokey, pointy dental things they jam in your mouth. And they're like, oh, your gums bleed easy. And I'm like, yeah, they bleed easy when you cut them with a scalpel. And then also attached to the chair was the sink. Now, our dentist sink has 2 faucets. One's probably 12 inches tall. It's an inverted J, and you stick your Dixie cup under there, and you press a button, and the water fills up the cup, and you swishy, and then you spit into another little sink, and there's another faucet that's maybe 1.5 inches long, and you push a button, and that sprays water into the sink and washes away what you swished. And so for a while, I played with those buttons, like I was trying to do a laser show to Stairway to Heaven. And then I tapped out SOS on those buttons, thinking that somewhere in the building, there might be some conscientious plumber who was going to be like, what? I hear someone tapping SOS on the plumbing. I must go investigate. But then, connected to those sinks by a rubber hose was a water gun. Now, this was not a toy. This was medical equipment capable of shooting a laser beam of ice-cold water that could remove decades of impacted plaque. And trust me, I know. And I was reaching for that gun. I was thinking to myself, you know what? With that gun, I bet I could shoot a hole right through the drywall. And then I thought, no matter how empathetic Dr. Lambert is, if he comes in here and I'm shooting holes in the drywall, he's not going to be happy. So I left the gun alone. And then I looked down on the floor. On the floor beside me, there was a foot pad, and it had those buttons that the dentist can push, and the chair goes up or the chair goes down. It's the exact same piece of equipment that your barber or your hairstylist has, but here it's medical equipment, so it cost $14,000. And I thought, I have always wanted to push one of those buttons. So I reached down and I pushed a button, and the chair went clunk, and it started to descend. And it went down maybe 18 inches, and then it went clunk, and it stopped. And I thought that was fun, and that did not hurt. So I have not learned anything. Thus, I am going to press another button. So I pushed another button, and this time the chair went clunk, and it started to ascend. And I thought it's going to go up about 18 inches, and it's going to stop. But it did not stop. It continued to ascend. And I was getting closer and closer to the ceiling. And I thought, I am going to be crushed to death against the ceiling of my dentist's office. And I thought, I don't want to be crushed to death against the ceiling of my dentist's office. And then I thought, well, at least, I'm not at my general practitioner's office, because then all I'd be wearing was the paper, was the paper robe. And then I thought, oh, even better, I'm not at my urologist's office, because then I'd be naked. And I didn't want to be crushed to death against the ceiling of any medical professional's office, but I certainly didn't want to be naked when it happened. And then I thought to myself, your dentist almost never says to you, go in the other room, take your pants off, I'll be in a minute. And if your dentist ever does say that to you, for heaven's sakes, you might want to find a new dentist. But anyway, I didn't want to be squished to death against the ceiling, and I thought I got to stop this madness. And at first, I thought I'd just get out of the chair. But then I remembered that Krista said, don't get out of the chair. And I am a product of the American public school system, and I know when an authority figure says, don't get out of the chair, you don't get out of the chair. But I didn't want to die this way. I thought I got to do something. So I looked over the edge of the chair, and sure enough, there on the floor was that little box with the buttons you can press. But I couldn't reach the buttons anymore because I was way up in the air. And then I noticed that the tray with the little pokey, pointy dental tools was rising up with me. And I thought if I take one of those tools and invert it so it's blunt side down, I can drop it, I can hit the button, and I can stop this madness. Only now, I couldn't really see the foot pad because the chair had shifted ever so little. So I had to take that dental tool that's got like the little bent wire on it and then a mirror about the size of a quarter. And I put that in my teeth, and I was kind of trying to aim, looking through the reflection at the thing, and I dropped the pokey pointy thing, and about halfway down, it re-inverted. So the pokey part was down, and twang, it hit the linoleum, and it stuck. So I took another one, and another one, and another, and I just took whole handfuls of them. And finally, one of those pokey pointy things hit the button. But it wasn't the stop the ascent button. It was the start the recline button. And pretty soon I was parallel with the ceiling and the floor. And then I was at a negative 35-degree angle, which would have been fine if I was a roof. Carpenter could have come by, put shingles and a chimney on me, but I wasn't a roof. I was a dental patient. And then that 40-pound lead apron slid off my neck and behind my back, so now it was flapping out there like a cape, but not like a useful cape. Like it wasn't trying to help me fly. It was more like an anchor trying to pull me head first into the linoleum. And so I had my hands on the armrest, locked in tight so I wouldn't slide off. But that lead apron, as I said, had come up and flipped around, and now my shirt started to slide up. And there were coins rolling out of my pocket, bouncing off my chin, flying every direction. My keys came out of my pocket. Almost took my eye out. I thought if my pocket knife comes out of my pocket, I'm a dead man. And I was kind of sliding out of my blue jeans. But fortunately, I had my wallet in my pocket. Now, I'm one of those people, I can't keep my wallet thin. And if it was cash, I would just shut up about it. But you see, what happens is I drive a lot. Well, before the pandemic, I was driving like 30,000 miles a year, which means I needed a lot of gasoline and a lot of coffee. And when you went into a coffee store, at least in the old days, or a gas station that sold coffee, we'll call it a coffee gas station store, and you bought a cup of coffee, the clerk behind the desk would say something to you like, do you want to join our coffee club? If you buy 5 cups of coffee, you get the 6th cup free. And I was always afraid they were going to get fired if they didn't sign enough people up for their stupid coffee club. And so all that to say, I am now 4 cups of coffee away from a free cup of coffee at every gas station on this side of the Mississippi River. So my wallet's like that thick, and I have to take it out of my pocket when I sit down. Otherwise, I end up driving, you know, like this, or I only get half my hair cut. But Krista had said I was just going to be in this chair for a minute, so I left my wallet in my pocket, which was a good thing, because it was caught in the crease of the chair, and it was kind of holding me in place. But the chair was getting closer and closer to the ceiling, and then bam, I hit the ceiling. And the chair went clunk, and it stopped, and it started to descend. And it went down about 18 inches, and it went clunk, and it stopped. And it started to ascend. So now I was being hammered into the ceiling, just wham, wham, wham. And every time I hit, something else would happen. One of my shoes would go flying off. The other shoe went flying off. The 40-pound lead apron was choking me out. I thought, I have got to get out of this situation. And that's when I realized that the sink had risen with me as well. And there was the water gun. And I thought, if I take that water gun, I can shoot the button. I can stop this madness. But now I couldn't see the footpad at all. So I couldn't hit anything with the water gun. And then I noticed on the wall, way over there, was the intercom. And I thought, if I can shoot the intercom with this beam of water, I can call the receptionist and someone will come and save me. So I was trying to aim, but it was difficult to aim because I had to reach around the x-ray machine, and I was going up and down, and I was at a negative 35-degree angle, and I was being strangled by a 40-pound lead apron. But I finally fired, and sure enough, I put a hole right through the drywall. In fact, I put about 8 holes in the drywall before I finally hit that button. And the receptionist said, "May I help you?" And I said, "Ha, ha, 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 ha," because I still had that little filmy flangey thing in my mouth. And she said, "Dr. Lambert will be in to see you in just a moment." And just then, for whatever reason, the rubber hose connecting the sink to the water gun split in half. So now there was half of a high-pressure water hose just flapping around the room. There was water going everywhere. It was hitting the ceiling and coming down. It was cascading all over me. And I don't know if it was the water or the up and down or what, but I finally just slid right out of my blue jeans. Now, I did manage to sort of hook my leg around the armrest. So I was hanging there, upside down, in my boxer shorts, water going everywhere. And that is when Dr. Lambert came back in the room. And he didn't say anything. He just looked at me, looked at the water, went over to that footpad, pressed a button, and the chair started to descend. And he pushed another button, and the chair started to disrecline. And when we got down to the bottom, when I got down to the bottom, I managed to wiggle myself back in the chair, and I opened my mouth, and Dr. Lambert reached in, and he pulled out that little filmy flangey thing, and he said, "Well, everything looks fine here." And then, like any good medical professional, he said, "I'll leave the room while you get your pants back on." And that is why I love my dentist. Thank you guys very much.
Well, we hope you're enjoying the story so far, but don't forget, leave a generous donation to Camp Bethel and to the tellers for their tips. Thank you.
We hope the festival will be back home in person next year and need your help in getting the camp ready to reopen as soon as possible for summer camps, guest groups, and special events like the festival. Please click on the link below and make your contribution toward the work, the fun, and the fellowship that find a home at Camp Bethel. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your gift.